Hey yo, it's your proverbial boy here in a magical forest. Like and subscribe, yada yada yada. And today I'm bringing you a video that I feel is quite important. Now, social interaction, this is an activity that for many people has got a lot of issues, a lot of pitfalls surrounding it. And as I've said in previous videos, as a result of various counter conditionings that are imposed upon us by society, the vast majority of people have developed certain learned fear triggers around social interaction that are in actuality sort of arbitrary in terms of their relationship to any actual real danger. Now, through what cognitive behavioral scientists call extinction therapy, that is progressive exposure to increasingly triggering situations, you can in fact train yourself to have a little bit more control over those learned fear and anxiety triggers. And we know this, right? I mean, hell, I see it pretty much every weekend in real time on my coaching programs for the past 17 years. But for many people, even the knowledge that this anxiety can be conditioned away to an extent, even that isn't enough. The fear is just too powerful. It makes it extremely difficult, if not impossible, to even get started on the process, on the journey. So in this video, I want to sort of explore all the issues surrounding this. First off, why it's important to believe that this is something you can in fact change, right? It's very important, as my buddy Owen says, that you see a lane where you can be successful at it. I also will tell you a little bit about how I personally dealt with it. Because remember, I certainly wasn't born with this ability, right? To go up to people that I don't know and change their opinion of me from neutral or even hostile to favorable or even awesome in a very short time period. I wasn't born with that ability to do that. I had to go through the same process as everybody else. But believe me, when I say that not only is this extremely possible to achieve, but the benefits are so mind-blowingly amazing, through pretty much every area of your life, that once you do it, it's just one of those things that you'll beat yourself up for not having done it earlier. But the only way to get over that fear is to do it, right? And arguably, the cumulative effect of punking out and succumbing to that fear over time, I would say that's actually far more damaging to your psyche long term than any short-term anguish that you might struggle with as you try to get started. So you've got to take that leap of faith. You got to accept the challenge, and it's only then that you will find your glory days. And I was like, no, my jeggings. That was like the overarching thought in my mind, was my jeggings ripped. You never know what's going to happen on a given night. You never ever know what's going to happen. And like I'm always saying, part of when I'm doing boot camp, and I really love doing the boot camps. It's kind of funny too, because come Fridays, I got to get up. It's like, on Monday, who here is like a Monday through Friday job? Like Monday, like 9 to 5, basic, standard job. On Monday morning, you're like, got to go to work. So sometimes I will have that feeling, And then we just go out there, and like by the end of it, I've like met these people that I didn't know before, and we've been through these crazy adventures together, and I've seen them go from here to here, or even from here to here, and I've seen that change, that transformation affected. Part of it for me is watching the transformation happen in the guy's eyes. Because you always see it, like from Sweden or Spain or wherever the case may be, Australia in some cases. But they're even having done all that, they're still like, maybe this is BS, right? So my goal is by the end of the weekend to change that, where they're like, no, it's real, and moreover, I can do it. So you have to have a belief that you can do it. How many people in here believe that they can learn this stuff? Say yes. Yes. Now, many of you are probably, you're the guys who schlepped down here on what day is it, Saturday? Yeah. I feel underdressed because of this gala or whatever. I'm like, should I have brought my tuxedo? But anyway, you're the guys who came down here, so on some level you believe it, but I think that some people, even in this crowd, you're saying yes, but you're having difficulty with that. You're saying it out, you're saying it, but internally you're like, I can't do these things. At least not at the level that I maybe see other guys do it. It's like, look, if I sent you home with the top chef in America, or like, not even America, let's say Gordon Ramsay, right? A guy who gets paid to swear now, basically. Sounds like an awesome job, but do you think you could learn how to cook a beef Wellington? Like, I don't even know what that is, honestly. It's like one of his signature things from Top Chef or something. But, some of you are in here like, I can't even boil water, right? But it's like, give me a break. If I send you home with Ramsey, he's going to call you a donkey or whatever like a million times and curse at you, but after 15 tries, you're probably going to finally arrive at something approximating a beef Wellington, right? Because it's not luck, it's not magic, it's technique, and it's reproducible. If one guy can do it, another can do it. So that's another thing I love about this. There's really no barrier to entry for it. You know, I've seen guys from all walks of life, from all, backgrounds, from all levels of ability, become very successful at this. In fact, here in Los Angeles, there's a guy who has cerebral palsy who goes out and does this. And then people will complain, they'll see that. And they'll be like, well, he has an advantage, he has cerebral palsy. Like what, he gets a better parking spot for better logistics? It's like, give me a break, man. If that, like, everyone's gonna come up with some excuse. You know, I'm short, I'm old, I'm bald, I'm Asian, X ethnicity, I'm in a wheelchair, whatever the case may be. We've had students who are deaf, blind, et cetera, et cetera. So anyone can be good at it. Like for me, if I wanted to become, if I wanted to play on the Los Angeles Lakers, that's just not happening. I'm sorry. Sorry, Jeff. Your dreams of NBA stardom are not happening because you're a 43-year-old, 5'7" white guy, right? But there's a barrier to entry to that. There's no barrier to entry to this. Look, I realize I'm for some, not for others. That's one of the biggest realizations as I got older. Like if you watch clips of myself when I was younger, like in my early 30s, and I had that mullet haircut and everything, and a lot of the things I'm saying are the same. But there's a different tonality to it, where it's more like, do you like it? Do you like it? Do you think I'm funny? Do you think I'm cool? Do you think I'm attractive? There's a little bit of, it's subtle, but it's there. Whereas the more recent stuff is just very grounded. It's just less trying. Less trying, more just, like as Derek says, putting yourself out there, knowing your value, putting yourself out there and giving them the opportunity to meet you in the middle, and you start understanding on a more visceral level the value proposition for them. It enables you to go up and just kind of be very calm and just put yourself out there. And then of course, you also have a mechanical understanding of how to move it forward. So there's two sides to it, okay? We all know this. Understanding the effects that social conditioning, social pressure is having on you, and beginning to understand how to push back on that and be effective in the environment. That's number one. Number two is knowing the mechanics. Like my buddy, this guy Craig, was an ex-student of mine, who went on to become very, very successful at this stuff. He's like, everybody's bored. So that whole giving them something different to talk about, what does that mean? That means just expressing yourself fully, not trying to impress, enjoying yourself and drawing them into that energy, as opposed to what? Coming at it from this protective intent, this defensive little guy who's just trying to walk on the eggshells around them and say the right things. Now, paradoxically, the less you care about people liking it, the more you seem to have chemistry with people. Why do you think that is? Whatever you feel, they feel. So if you go up and you need it to work, you have anxiety, you have trepidation, you have a desire for validation, you have all of these things that are essentially called neediness, they're going to feel that, and there's going to be an instinctual revulsion to that. However, if someone goes up and they're very free socially, they're very expressive and charismatic in a social pressure environment, social pressure situation, they begin to feel like that too. And they're like, well, maybe if I were to hang out with this person, I could feel like this as well. Or I could learn to even be like this on a longer term, right? That's why it's very, very attractive. So look, you never know what's gonna happen. It's a completely open book. I mean, the same thing could be said about life in general, I suppose. But you gotta have that attitude of just anything can happen. I'm gonna go out there and make the myths. That was always my guiding principle when I was younger and when I was starting to do this stuff. I wanted to make the myths that people would talk about, that I would remember when I was 90 years old, that would be like a movie. Literally, that's what we said. Our buddy Eric, Mystery, he would say that. We're learning this stuff so we can do the things that are only possible in the movies. That's what we're here for. And it's very possible. It's all within your reach if you're willing to, again, set the little ego aside, put your balls on the line, and go and just go find out. Find out. those of us who are new, how do we get started? It's an interesting question, and it's a question that we hear a lot because, let's face it, I think many guys don't start because it's quite confusing. There's a lot of information out there, much of it conflicting. I couldn't even make eye contact with people. I would just walk down the street on my lunch break and like look people in the eyes as I walked by. Or then I just started saying hi to them. I would say hi to 100 people on the street, like on my lunch break. Just say hi. So what do you think the results of that were? Well, about 10% would kind of have like a annoyed reaction. They'd be like don't talk to me, like type of thing. And then 10% would maybe like stop and actually, oh, hi, how are you? And engage me in conversation, like be very friendly. But the vast majority would just be like, oh, hey, and just continue by. And it's like, oh, I'm still here. I'm still corporeal. I haven't been vaporized into mist or something like that. And then I started to slowly then begin to extend those conversations. Then I started to inject humor and my personality into them. Then I started to inject like the romantic angle through flirtatious comments. You just got to start somewhere. But what I would say, it just depends. It depends like what your goals are, because not a lot of people, I don't think everyone wants to be this like weird superhero. Some just want to be competent. And what the level to get like competent, it's not really as high as you might think. You know, why? Why do you think that is? Well, it's a two-way street. You know, the great philosopher from the 20th century, Cyndi Lauper, said it best: girls just want to have fun. So, but yeah, you do need to learn a couple basics, couple basic mechanical things, and then the most important thing really is fixing the mental blocks that are preventing you from taking action, right? Sometimes we get on the program, we'll get students who are very reserved. They're quite reserved. They have they have a difficult time like cutting loose. They have a difficult time having fun in the club. And this is the worst, because if you're too serious in the club environment, it's like whatever you feel, they feel. If they're out there trying to unwind from their stressful work week, and you're coming up all, hello, ma'am, how's it going? You know, they're just gonna be like, get the away. They're just not gonna wanna engage with it. It's unappealing. So, and furthermore, they tend to stick out like a sore thumb. So for these guys, look, I understand I'm not going to be able to take some 40-year-old dude who's been a stick in the mud, so to speak, for his entire life and be like, transform him into this like, hey, you know, this outgoing, you know, ebullient person. So what we'll do is we have something that we call artificial fun. So I'll take a sash. You ever see those like sashes that the brides wear, the bachelorettes wear? And you know, I used to have one that said, "Sorry boys, I'm taken." That it was given to me by a bachelorette party. So now I just have one that says, "Finally 21." Which is, it's much funnier if you put it on like a 45-year-old as opposed to like, you know, some guy who could actually be 21. But if you just throw that little thing on him, it's like a +5 charisma right off the bat. You know, it's like some sort of artifact that you just throw on them and anyone will talk to them. I have a variety of things like this. I have something called the booze guitar. Anyone familiar with this? You know what the booze guitar is? It's exactly like it sounds. It's a plastic hollow guitar that is a giant like 80-ounce flask. But that booze guitar, if this thing is like a +5 charisma, the booze guitar, it's like a +25 charisma. Like anyone will talk to you when you have this. Furthermore, you will become invincible. It makes you invincible. Like the more you consume, the more invincible you become. However, it exacts a terrible price, and you may not be able to rise from your bed the following day until 5 p.m. with a splitting headache. In fact, I had this one kid. He was a small Indian man from like the very south India, like a very dark brother, like Wesley Snipes type complexion, extremely thick accent, very reserved. Very reserved, like he had just come to America. He's an engineer, you know, I live in San Francisco. He'd just come here, he's very shy. Third day, we give him the booze guitar. He transforms, and now he's running around the park announcing to people that he is, quote, Habib from Uganda. And he's like, "I'm Habib from Uganda." And I'm like, damn. I'm like, holy shit, this guy came out of his shell. NLP, peacocking, all of these things, do they work? Yes. Why? Because it's like the magic penny theory. You're like, I have this secret knowledge. I have the gift of fire from the gods that has been revealed to me. And armed with this secret knowledge, I can now go out and be effective in ways that other people are not. Was it really that stuff that worked? I don't think so. I think it was just the fact that we were going out and trying stuff and pushing the interaction. And the NLP and all that stuff, I don't care. Like, look, whatever it takes to get you out and get you interacting with people. You know, if having the magic penny helps, by all means, go for it. By all means, use it. Try it out. Everything must be field tested. If you want to know if it works, don't ask me. Go out and use it. Go out and do it. Anything will work. Anything will work if you're coming from the right place internally. I remember last year, my assistant Kyle and I, we were out in Boston, and we decided to do, like, we like to mix it up. So we're like, tonight, let's do Chode Night. What does Chode Night consist of? Chode Night means we're going to go up and we're going to say, hi, you're beautiful, and we're just going to start asking interview questions. Where do you live? What do you? We're going to do this all night. It's going to be a fun night. The blowouts, let the blowouts commence. So we went and we started doing it, and we were getting success. They were like, oh yeah, I'm Sarah, this is so-and-so. Oh yeah, cool. And we're kind of looking at each other like, what is happening here? Why did it work? Because they could tell we were doing it proactively. Most guys are desperately treading water. When they're going and asking the questions, they're like, I hope the questions don't run out. I hope the questions don't run out. What do you do? Where do you live? Where do you live? Once the questions run out, they're done. They're done. But when we're in there and we're just like chilling back asking the questions, they know, they can sense that any moment, even though we're kind of chill now, we could just be like, Shoryuken! And like, Hadouken! We could like bust out the crazy. They know it's coming from a proactive place. We're making a proactive decision to be more chilled out. Right? You learn how to fight so you don't have to. You ever heard that phrase? Learn how to fight so you don't have to. So if you learn how to be expressive, so you don't default, you're not defaulting to the more, again, the boring get to know you stuff. The main thing is just go out there and try it. Go out there and try it. Just try it out, man. Whatever you think is like funny. To me, that's really the overarching ethos when I'm out there. Like, what would be the funniest thing I could do right now? Now, simultaneously, I'm also moving it forward methodically, right? There's that element too, right? So remember, everybody's bored, give them something different to talk about. So make yourself laugh, whatever you feel they feel. If you make yourself laugh and it's authentic, you're gonna draw them into that. Vibing is like a river. Vibing is just a non-goal oriented conversation that is designed to do one thing and one thing alone. Pump emotional state. That's it. That's the only goal. Just keep it fun, fun, fun. So I'll talk very enthusiastically about whatever it is, no matter how mundane, because they're not attracted to the content, they're attracted to the vibe. Is it fun? Do they want to be around this? Is it fun? Does it feel good? It doesn't matter what you're talking about either. In professional communication, in your average day-to-day communication, it is, you're expected to put certain types of emotion on certain types of content, right? There's certain stories that you would tell in an excited way, and there's certain stories that it wouldn't make sense to tell in an excited way. Like if I was talking about how I came here today, I'd be like, I woke up and I was in the Laurel Canyon. And then I took a shower and I brushed my teeth. I called an Uber. It was really hot in the Uber. And then we drove here, it took a while. Like if I told that story like that, it would make sense. But if I'm like, I woke up this morning, it's fucking awesome. I took a shower, dude. I brushed my teeth. It's called oral hygiene. Look into it. It's fucking rad. Then the Uber came. And I had to wind my way through the street. Like it doesn't make sense for me to tell that story with that level of enthusiasm. It's weird. But this is not so, because you have to keep their attention and you have to keep the vibe high. So again, I'll just vibe. Your number one tool in your toolbox in vibing is what? Free association. Free association. Whatever they say, I will simply scan, like my brain will heuristically scan for anything tangentially related to what they just said. An anecdote from my personal experience, a factoid, a weird story that like is kind of oblique to it, like that relates to it in some weird way. Boom, and I will instantaneously say whatever pops up to my mind. This is a big thing. Many guys have difficulty freeing their mind. They're overthinking it. You know what I mean? Because young guys, how many guys in here are like under 25? Show of hands? Probably a lot, probably at least half. So the thing that I've always said, I didn't start doing this till I was 26. But I think that when younger guys get into the game, you're still kind of figuring out what you're all about, right? Like, what do I stand for? What do I represent? How do I want to live my life? Like, what do I even like to do? You know, it's not really clear. Like, that's why you see a lot of younger people, they'll gravitate towards certain types of clique, especially in like high school. Like, I'm an emo, or I'm a hype beast, or whatever the you guys call it these days. You know, or I'm like the jock, or I'm this or that, or I listen to this kind of music, et cetera, et cetera. So you're kind of like trying on different styles of identity. I'm just not saying everyone's like this, but like for the most part, what I notice, younger guys, that's kind of like a pitfall of being a bit younger. But like, you got to like take pains to figure out what you're about, what you value, what you will tolerate, what you will not tolerate, what are your boundaries, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a big process of like the next like couple of years for you, you know, as an adult. Like, who am I as an adult person in the world? Now, conversely, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you got guys who are in their 40s, you know, 35 up. Their identity is rock solid. They know exactly what they stand for. They know exactly what they want to do in their life. They know what their identity is. It's very well defined. But here's the question. What do you do if your identity sucks? Or excuse me, let's put it a different way. What do you do if your identity is disempowering? It's hard to shake off. I had a guy this past weekend. He was 46. In his mind, you could tell he wanted to change, but he was simply, he was so calcified in his own like worldview. Because think about it. He's like, I'm 46. I'm still alive, relatively successful. You know, I have kids, they grew up and they're doing okay, et cetera, et cetera. Even brought his kid to the free tour, his 21-year-old son to the free tour. I was like, you should have enrolled your son instead. At least then he'd have some hope maybe, right? But the thing is with these guys, when you get a hard case like that, I have a variety of ways to try to motivate them to do it. After 16 years, you developed a number of strategies. You know, you try Sergeant, you try caring friend, everything in between, you know, you try like different gambits. But at the end of the day, he's just like, these people are weird. These people are weird, I don't like them. It's like, if you think everyone in the club is weird, maybe it's not everyone in the club. Maybe it's you. And you need to think about, again, opening up a little bit, opening up your ideas of what the world is about. So those guys, and by the way, I've seen guys, like I've had guys who were like in their 50s and be extremely successful. I'm just saying, these are kind of trends that I've seen. And look, I get it. This is easier said than done. This is easier said than done. I can stand up here all day and be like, don't be intimidated. All right, let's do a couple more, and then we'll take a little break, and then I think Owen's coming through. Let's see, blue shirt.
So how do you believe in your own ideas? Like,
what? I don't know what that meant, but this, wait, so sorry, go ahead.
So like you talked yesterday about it being like self-determination.
How do you believe in your own ideas?
Yeah.
You know, I know that you see a lot of these guys up here, and you know, Owen is like a very strong character. You know, myself, I guess you could also consider myself like a pretty like forward, you know, self-assured character, et cetera, et cetera. But we have doubts, man. Like we face doubts all the time. Here's the secret. Little reminder, nobody has their shit together. Some people are just better at pretending. Like from Lee Iacocca, from Elon Musk on down, like everyone's just trying to figure it out as they go along. So you gotta like, I think it's just like taking like a leap of faith, because who else are you gonna trust besides yourself? I mean, obviously you're just gonna have mentors and stuff like that, people who have like walked the path. You're pretty stupid if like you believe you can do it all yourself, you know? And that's something that's been a huge struggle for me personally, because like, especially like delegating, say, video editing or something like that. Like that stuff, I should be working on like content creation. I should be working on like traveling and meeting people like in events like this all over the world and stuff like that. If I'm like bogged down with this like minutia of like editing a video, that's not a good use of my time, not a good use of Tyler's time necessarily. But it takes a lot of faith to let go and delegate that to someone else. Do you know what I mean? What you do not see is like the countless near-death experiences. Every company is going to have that. You know, we've been on the brink of like complete annihilation so many times, but again, that's not the forward-facing part of the business, is it? It's like everything's great, everything's great. You don't see like the founders trying to rip each other's eyeballs out. Like literally rolling on the ground, like attacking each other. Okay, not literally, but figuratively. And you know, like we all have self-doubts, but at a certain point, you just have to like take the leap of faith. You know what I mean? And for me personally, the reason I was like that, like I was so like self-determined, was because I didn't feel like I had a choice. Everyone else failed me. Like society failed me, my parents failed me, romantic relationships failed me, school failed me. Like, who else was I gonna turn to? You know what I mean? So, like for me, it was sort of, and for Derek too, like he's another guy who had like a pretty traumatic childhood and stuff like that. It's like, we didn't really have a choice. But if you think about it, does anyone really have a choice? At the end of the day, is anyone really going to be there for you? At any point, your entire world could be like ripped out from under you. That's how I felt when I was 15 and that happened with my dad. It just felt like a movie. It felt like it wasn't real. And I remember thinking, my whole life, I wanted to have like my life be like a movie. And now I just wanted it to be normal again. You know what I mean? And there was no going back. And that's kind of, you know, this is kind of I'm not like proud to admit this, but I remember like after the 2016 election, when Trump got elected, so many people were like, and I live in San Francisco, right? People were in the streets crying, like rolling on the floor and crying, like sobbing, like that one video where the girl's like, no, like it was like literally like that. And like for so many people in this country, like they're just like, how is this happening? I'm in a dream now. Even in like the debates when he's like talking about how big his is and all that, he's like, no, puppet, you're the puppet, like all that. I was like, it's just like, is this reality? And they felt, I seeing all these people like feel that they have become unmoored from reality. I took a sick pleasure in that actually, because I was like, I know what that feels like. It's like, welcome to my world, everyone. So welcome. I hope you enjoy it here. But the point being, it's like, I think at the end of the day, you don't really have a choice. You know, how old are you, by the way?
I just turned 30.
So yeah, you're kind of like, when I was around 30, I had something interesting happen. I got a new girlfriend who was like very attractive, but then my old girlfriend stole my new girlfriend from me using the techniques I had taught her and moved in with her just to piss me off. And I was like, touche. Like I didn't know like whether to be proud or upset or both. And then I got fired from my job, like my day job at the hotel, for like banging someone and showing up late to work. Totally not even worth it. And I was just like in a very dark place. And I felt like it all had like kind of fallen apart. And then I got a call from Owen. And he said, hey, he's like, we hired on this new guy, a new instructor, and we want you to train this guy. And he lives in Spain, he's called Ozzy, and you're gonna have to fly to Spain though and like live there for 6 months and train this guy, and you'll fly to London every week and do boot camps. Now my initial reaction to that was, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it, because why? I was like, dude, I don't want to like live in some foreign country for 6 months, like, I don't want to. But then I thought about it, I was like, dude, I have nothing here. Like no girlfriend, like nothing holding me down, like no job, like let's just go. So I went. And has anyone in here ever like traveled away from home for like long periods of time like that? Like several months at a time? So what I found personally, and tell me if you found the same, it kind of gives you an interesting perspective on your life back home. Because you don't have the old anchors, you don't have your old friends, you don't have the old places you always go to, kind of drawing you into those habitual behaviors. So it allows you to see from like kind of a more objective perspective how you've been living your life. And so, I guess I had what's called a Saturn return. Anyone here into like astrology know what that is? No one, no guys are into that, but like neither am I. But like someone told me, oh yeah, that's Saturn return. So the idea of Saturn return is every like 27 to 30 years, a person will have like a period of introspection where they evaluate how they've been living their life up to that point, and this will very often result in them making radical changes to their behavior and their life. So for me, being over there, I kind of saw like how I had been just this kind of like just not a very healthy person. I was like a drunken lunatic. Like I was not very healthy. So I stopped drinking for the first time. Like ever since I started drinking back in the day, I started going to the gym for the first time, like with some actual, for real. And I resolved to kind of be like a better friend, a better brother, son, all these different things. I really, again, as we talked about, started to evaluate what is my value system and how can I live up to that every day. So it was very interesting. And I realized that back home, I had been putting so much like energy into animating this character that I thought other people would respect and admire, that my real self-esteem was being starved. Furthermore, I realized I was in a place where I kind of felt like happiness was ahead of me. Has anyone here ever felt that? Like when you get a certain result, then you can be happy? Like once I get, hook up with this many girls, or once I do this behavior, or once I accumulate this specific item or whatever it is, then I can be happy. Right? So it was kind of weird. You guys all know who Eckhart Tolle is, right? He has an old saying, there's two ways to be insane. One is to not have what you want. The other is to get what you want. So what does that mean? It's like when you don't have what you want, yeah, you're kind of like up in arms about it, but at least like there's hope. You're like, once I get it, I'm gonna be there, right? Well, what happens when you get it and nothing's changed? Now you're because now you don't even have hope, right? Like now you don't even have the hope of like, oh well, once I get these things will be different. So I realized that I was still in this place where I was having success, but I still had that like anger and pain inside of me. And it really made me think. And it really made me think about like kind of the good times I was having, like, and what I wasn't appreciating in the moment. I remember back in like 2003, we were sleeping on like floors. Like we would literally go and fly into a place to do the boot camp. We'd find some person to let us sleep on the floor. I remember the first time I went to London, it was in 2003, and we had convinced this guy, Armin, to let us, like 10 of us, sleep in his little one-bedroom apartment. And so I'm the last one to arrive, and I get there, I'm like, knock, knock, hello, sir. I am Jeffrey, I'm here to stay at your home. He's like, oh yeah, come on in. And it was like 2 a.m. by the time I got there, so everyone's asleep. I'm like, oh, where may I sleep? He's like, yeah, it looks like all the floor's taken, man. I guess you can go in the garage. And so I go in the garage, it's like a bare concrete floor. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. Is there a blanket, sir? He's like, yeah, mate, looks like they took all the blankets, so now, sorry. I'm like, it's okay, I'll make do. And I like search this guy's house, and I go into his like half bath, like downstairs, and I under his like, under the sink in the cabinet, I found a wadded up bathrobe, sort of like mildewy wadded up bathrobe, and I like take it out, it's like stiff, I like shake it out, and I'm like sleeping on this floor, it's like January in London, and I'm like freezing my ass off on this concrete floor, and people ask me like, man, that must have sucked. And yeah, it kind of did suck, but in retrospect, it's kind of awesome. I'd never been to London before, it's like a free trip, this is fucking awesome. Like we would actually do events in like a Starbucks. We would go to Starbucks, and one guy would buy like a small coffee for $2, and then there's like 20 guys in the corner like, dirty, like, well, everyone's like, oh my God, what is happening? Like totally like offended, totally abusing the Starbucks. One time we went to we were in Sydney, we went to it was like an AIDS clinic, and we're like, hello, we're gay and we have AIDS. Can we have our support group in one of your rooms? They're like, oh yes, sure. And we like had the seminar in the seminar room at the AIDS clinic. We're gay and we have, yeah, not much of a stretch, right? But anyway, so look, A lot of guys ask me, they're like, man, that must have sucked. But in retrospect, like I said, it was like, dude, those were like the glory times. I almost wish I could go back to that. Almost, you know? Back in the day, if I got a phone number, I was stoked. If I started hooking up with more girls, I was stoked. And I realized all this. If 10 years from now, say we blow up or something, we're doing these things at like in the Staples Center across the way here to like 1,000 people or whatever. And you're like, man, this must have sucked back in 2019 doing these little things in the hotel for like 200 people or whatever. Like, nope, that was pretty awesome too. So point being, there's no brighter future that's ahead of you. It's now, right? You're in it. You're in it right now. Wake up. Get present. The glory days are now. Anyway, let's take a little break here. Thanks for entertaining me or, indulging me.
Definitely learned a lot just to be able to connect with people a lot better. Jeffy's really studied down to the roots of how we're so stifled and you have these entanglements inside you and how to release them. I definitely recommend this program for other people to take a deeper look within themselves. Jeffy's program is amazing.
This program is extremely exercise-based. It's designed to give you a process to identify these weaknesses in your communicative system, to open and sustain charismatic expression, charismatic communication with increasing consistency. All sensory communication is based on some relationship of these three perceptual and projective modes. Any art involving human communication is going to benefit from knowing how the communicating power of each mode can be enhanced. Charisma and conversational skill really hasn't had a vocabulary for talking about these issues surrounding the technique. Most of the books you read, the vast majority of them are very surface level, very hokey. And even with experienced teachers, the feedback can often be very subjective and vague. You seem kind of stifled. So I want to change the way that these criticisms or descriptions are verbalized and get very, very specific. So when we're talking about these blockages, we know precisely what we're talking about here.
If you follow the instructions, you see something very, very net and precise that happens. You're gonna see the result instantaneous.
The best charisma program I've ever seen.
So I learned something which is very rare.
How do people use their energies when they communicate? How can I help them become masters of those energies? So when you go out and you feel that blockage, that inability to act, oh, there's the person I want to talk to. I know how to go talk to them. I've read the theories, I've watched all the videos, but I can't take action. What's impeding the flow? Remove the obstacles, isolate the skills, exercise them separately, then put them together, back together in a more completely realized whole.
Unleashes your true charisma.
And in fact, you have some glimpse of energy you can manage on the wall side. Increase it, decrease it, manage it. Seriously, it was absolutely amazing and astonishing.
How to speak to all the issues surrounding this interrelationship between intuitive and intellectual resources is arguably the most fundamental challenge facing anyone who's attempting to improve their communication skills. So this program intends to prepare your total instrument to open and communicate freely, but also teach you to let go.
He will take you by the hand and guide you step by step with his method that he's been trying and improving, and you're gonna get the results that you're gonna be looking for.
Overall, this was a really broad spectrum course in charisma. I think I can apply it in my dating life, also in business and other areas of my life. So if you're looking to develop general charisma that you can apply across all areas of life, definitely check out Jeff's Charisma Mastery.